Good afternoon. It is so very wonderful to see your faces here today and very, very grateful for your presence. Thank you and welcome to Christ United Methodist Church. We are so very thrilled to be hosting this interfaith event and hope you all are enjoying your lunches. Thank you to our sponsors for that for today. And I would like to open us up just in a time of thinking of why we are here together. Grateful for this table conversation, and I hope you all have been engaging in that and had an opportunity to greet and get to know one another a little bit. We have a pretty tight agenda for today, so I apologize we got started a little bit late just because we wanted to wait for some folks to get here that we knew were coming. But I'd like to invite Jana Gramone and Linda Poole, who are our missions folks here at Christ UMC, to come up with me. And as they do so, just to share with you a little bit about why we felt it was so important to gather together as an interfaith community today. One of the things that we recognized as there were a few folks from the United Methodist Church who started gathering together, recognizing that homelessness was quite a challenge in Plano, was how large this challenge would be for our city. And so we started thinking we need to bring everybody together to the table. And as we did that, we realized that we all have a mandate in our faith, and that is to love and serve our neighbor. And for instance, when we look at some of the faiths that are represented here today, we recognize that the Muslim faith is here. And so we read from the Quran, as it says in the Quran 4:36, worship God and join none with him in worship, and do good to parents, kinfolks, orphans, the poor, the neighbor who is near of kin, the neighbor who is a stranger. And from the mitzvah, from our Jewish tradition, if any of your fellow Israelites become poor and are unable to support themselves among you, help them as you would a foreigner and stranger, so they can continue to live among you. And from the Sikh tradition, the scripture of the Guru Granth Sahib says that everyone is of equal authority and has a sacred duty to make a contribution towards the welfare of humanity. And finally, from the Christian faith, from the book of Mark, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. And so we are gathered here today because we all hear that call, that commandment, that mantra, that assurance that God, as we call God in all different forms, is with us in this journey to reach out to our neighbor. And so we thank you for your commitment to be here today. And I'm going to open us up with a prayer. Oh, divine presence, we thank you for this time together and the responsibility given to us to worship you by caring for our neighbor. We are blessed to have the opportunity to serve you, and we ask that in this time together, your presence will be made known in its many forms. Allow us to listen to your guidance and to have courage to follow your expectations that we care for those in need around us. We pray this day for all who are facing homelessness. We pray that their burdens might be lighted by our support, encouragement, and collaborative efforts. May we listen for your leading this day, dear Lord. Amen. At this time, I would like to invite Janet Collingsworth and Doug Nichols, who are going to be doing our PowerPoint presentation for today. And they are going to lead you in some facts about homelessness. It is our purpose today to educate. And we hope that for those of you who may not know a lot about homelessness in our city, that you might learn something. But it is also our purpose to inspire today, in the hope that we might join collaboratively in the future in facing this challenge together. So we're going to start out with some facts and go into a panel presentation and finish up with Q&A today. And we hope that you will engage in conversation and be present with us in this time.
Thank you, and a special thanks to Christ United Methodist Church for hosting us, and for all of the different groups within Christ United for making this an opportunity for us to come together in collaboration and in common spirits. We thank you guys for that. I'm Janet Collinsworth, and I have had the pleasure of meeting many of you in my journeys in working with those neighbors within our own community and our community extended who find themselves in a situation that no one would care to be in, those that are struck by poverty or those in the cycle of poverty. What we have put together here is some research, some data and statistics. Each one of you has a red folder, we hope, and if you don't, we'll get you one. Inside that folder is this PowerPoint. Now, it's more information than we are actually going to touch on here today, but that's the intent. You will have something to take away with you. So we're going to go through some of these slides, the ones with lots of numbers on them, pretty quickly. But hold your questions to the end, and when we have time after the panelists, we will also respond as we are able. So thank you all very much for coming. And I have a wonderful clicker here. Our purpose today is to raise awareness of the problems. Many of you already know this. You're in the trenches, you feel it. But it's also to bring us all together to collaborate so that being in a common spirit and of a common mind, we can do something about it. Not just address the problem, but do something about it. Some of the data that came from the 2012 Collin County Homeless Count. It's a point in time in January of each year that's an honor to participate in. In January of 2012, we counted 531 homeless in Collin County. And most of this, I have to tell you, is in the Plano area because the counts up in Allen and in Northern aren't as in-depth as the ones in Plano. What's important is that increased 292% since 2009. 292% since 2009. 592 may not be a big number to you, but that's only the tip of the iceberg, as you all know. Of that 531, 211 are children. Children experiencing homelessness increased 261% since 2009. And here's some interesting things. 54% have completed some college, and some of them have college degrees. 65% are employed. We think sometimes of homelessness as those that don't have a job, those that have always been sick, chronically homeless. But no, 65% are employed. 27 of those counted are unaccompanied youth. Unaccompanied youth that are seriously, truly homeless, living outside. What we also found of the 2012 count is that we have a new face of poverty and a new face of homelessness. If you compare the results in 2007 to the results in 2012 and look at the top 3 causes that those in homelessness now identified as their reason for being homeless, in 2012, the number 1 cause was domestic abuse with 48%, and then unemployment, and then just not enough money. In 2012, that's almost turned upside down. The number 1 cause by far, 52%, was unemployment. This is because of, in 2008, the economic crisis. We all experienced it. But what happens when you experience it to the point of having nothing is you and your family are literally on the street. Not enough money, and then domestic violence. And don't be misled by the fact that domestic violence went from 48% to 8%. All that means is we have a bigger population, and it was just a lower percentage of the whole. We're not really improving, sadly, our domestic violence problem that grandly yet. So where are they? If I'm telling you 531 are counted mostly in the Plano area, where are they? Well, Lynn will tell you most of them are at Samaritan Inn, and she'll be happy to tell you that in just a minute. Samaritan Inn is the only shelter in all of Collin County for transitional homelessness. There are zero emergency shelters, none. So Samaritan Inn, go back one more time. Samaritan Inn, she will share with you more details, turned away 3,500 qualified individuals last year. 3,500 qualified. So 3,500, we only counted 531. What's the difference? Where are these people? Family Promise. Jacqueline will be sharing a little bit about that with us. I said there's no emergency shelter. There's none. So where do these people go? Well, luckily with Family Promise, we can utilize structures like this, structures like churches, to house people on an emergency basis, short term. And she'll tell you more details about Family Promise. It's a short term, not a long term fix. And she will tell you we wish we had 5 times as many beds as what we are able to have in the Plano area. 14 is all we are able to have in the Plano area. And both of these are currently at and beyond capacity right now. These are the family resources. That's it. These are the only family resources there are in all of Collin County. So 161 beds in Samaritan Inn and 14 spots here. So next. Unaccompanied youth. We have City House and we have My Friend's House. My Friend's House has 24 beds, but for a limited time of 30 days. The only way a child could get into My Friend's House is through Child Protective Services. So what about the street kids that are on the street? Well, City House was actually formed for that by 2 teachers many years ago, decades ago in fact, that saw the need because they saw homeless children in their classrooms right then. Right now, City House, to accommodate the problem with children ages 16 through 21, and these are our still children, 16 through 21, they have 2 houses, one for young boys or men and one for young women, that house up to 6 beds each, so 12. So we have 12 plus 24, so we have 36 beds. 3,500 were turned away at Samaritan Inn. So now we have 36 beds for youth and 14 beds for families. Next. Hope's Door for domestic violence only, and only if you have an immediate threat of domestic violence, not if you've suffered in the past can you find shelter. And only if you have children under the age of, I think it's 12. And only if you don't have older men children. So, and you get all that, we get all that. But what happens to everybody else? And even here, 22 beds, and they are full and at capacity and have a waiting list. Hope's Door is an amazing thing, and they have an amazing transitional program. But there's 22 beds. There's 22 beds. 3,500 people were turned away. 22 beds for domestic violence victims. Emily's Place, what's formerly known as Providence House, has 12 beds currently, and that's in Plano and Allen. 12 beds. This is not a shelter. This is a transformational program that can house and help women and women with children up to 2 years. But they only right now have 12 beds. Later this year, in December, they hope to open a first of 3 units on their new campus in East Plano. That first facility will be 28 to 30 beds. So that's awesome, and we love that, but that's only plus 16 beds, 16 to 18 beds. 3,000, we haven't even come up to the 500 part of 3,500 yet. So there is a huge, huge disconnect. So next, where else are they? Extended stay hotels. Perhaps earlier this last year, you might have seen in the Dallas Morning News pictures of Dwayne Hill and his wife Denise and their 4 children. They're staying at the Sun Suites Inn over on 75. Well, God provides a way, right? If we don't have a homeless shelter, then we'll just take a hotel and make it a homeless shelter, because that's really what's happening here. Almost everyone in this extended stay hotel is effectively homeless. PISD, thank you, James, has bus stops there. The bus stops there. And Allen too, right? Allen bus goes there, everyone. Is this temporary, or is this because we have nothing else? This is because we have nothing else. So we have 1 hotel room, extended stay, 6 people in that hotel room. Dwayne and Denise. That's just one example. That's just one example. Where else are they? Doubling up. When I first got into the responsibility and the honor of working with those in poverty, I learned a new vocabulary, and James taught me a lot of it. Well, we have them, because I asked him these questions, where are these people that are homeless? Well, they're doubling up, or in a minute I'll talk to you about sofa surfing. Well, this is a national problem, but it's also right here in River City, right here in Plano. 14.1% of Americans between 35 and older were up since 2000. But 12 million in that age group are living with relatives. 12 million are living with relatives. That's up 36%. So doubling up, friends and family are a solution. Is that a solution forever? I don't know. Benjamin Franklin, 3 days for fish and guests, that's it? Well, I can tell you from our experience that we have come across folks that have been turned out by their family because this is an extended problem. So what do you do then? If you've used up all of your welcome everywhere, where do you go from there? Next is sofa surfing. It's a very, very short path from sofa surfing to homelessness. Sofa surfing is sometimes during bad weather, inclement weather. It's sometimes what youth do. It's sometimes what family does. Sofa surfing is a new word in our language. Next. So here's some statistics that are very important. This is a page in your flyer that you should earmark. Plano, Texas, population in the 2010 census was about 270,000. All the other data that you're going to see here today is about Collin County, but this will help you focus on what's happening right here in Plano, since this is a Plano faith-based group. Almost 270,000 folks in Plano based on the 2010 census. The poverty rate in 2009 was about 10%. According to city data. So the estimated number of folks in Plano living at the poverty level is about 29,000 right now, 2010. That was 2 years ago. So it's increased because, things aren't getting better, right? So Plano residents under the age of 18 is about 26%. So if you do the math, then we have children at or below the poverty level of 9.3%, and do the math, and you have 6,500-ish kids living at or below the poverty level in Plano. Now you might say, oh, I'm not really sure about that. I don't really know that I believe all that. Well, okay, so let's look at some other real statistics. Let's look at, for example, the free and reduced lunch statistic that can attest to that. So in 2010, we had about 18% of our 55,000 students in PISD on free and reduced lunches. In March of 2013, thank you, James, for this information, 28%, 10% increase in just 3 years. 10% increase, and we know from experience, and James will share this with you, it's not everybody who is eligible applies. Not everybody who's eligible. So we have about 15,000 students in PISD on the program. So that 6,500 number of potential homelessness is not too far off. It's not too far off. In PISD, they identify by name certain students as being homeless because James takes care of them, right? Takes care of them, makes sure they don't become homeless. They've identified approximately 400 right now. As James will tell you, that's really low. Is it 3 or 4 times, James? About 4 times. So not 400, but 1,600. 1,600. Next. So let me tell you about real people that I know in Plano. This is Matilda and her 2 sons, Trevor and Jason. Matilda is the result of some horrible domestic violence that no one should have to endure, but especially her 2 sons should not have to witness this. They've all 3 been held at gunpoint as a result of some really very horrible domestic violence. Well, they came to us almost homeless, imminently homeless. They needed electricity. When I talk to Matilda, I find out they really need rent. They really need food. They really don't have a future. They are imminently homeless. Trevor, a former A student, is now in juvie. Actually, he's not now. He's graduated because we stepped in and helped him. And Jason was, as a result of a brain trauma, was deemed by his school to be special needs, which is not true. He just needed to relearn how to learn. Relearn how to learn. Well, they can't go to Hope's Door. You know why? Because their boys are too old. So this is a family that falls in the gap. There's no one that can help them right now. No one. That's where we, the faith community, can step up and collaborate. Next. Meet Keisha. Keisha, we've just met this week. And Doug's going to tell you a little bit more about Keisha. Keisha's 19. Doug came to know her when he was providing furniture for her. Keisha is an amazing woman, a 19-year-old. She is going to Collin College. She graduated from Plano High School. She grew up here in Plano. But her dad's in jail, and her mom is on probation. So Keisha is the guardian for her 17-year-old brother, who also is having difficulties. What do we do with Keisha? She can't go to City House. She's got her brother. What do we do with Keisha? So all of these are problems where this group can step up right now, today, wrap our hearts and souls around our neighbors, what we're called to do, and make a difference. Doug.
Thank you, Janet. I'm going to hold on to my presentation because it's got notes on it to try to get me go fast. Got it. Keisha is part of that 224,000 number there. This graph shows that most of the kids are in Collin County as far as the DFW area is concerned. And ethnic-wise, it's a broad palette. No one discriminates against color as far as poverty goes in Collin County. Next slide. Those kids suffer the most. If our housing expenses stay the way they are and have continued the way they are, and people's incomes decrease because of job loss, taking a lesser job, spouses split up, there's no more money for anything else. So everything that the kids are expected to have, that we have, they don't get. Next slide. The system's become very burdened as far as the money that's available. CHIPS, for instance, has increased substantially, almost a little over twice. And also Medicaid is increased substantially, almost 3 times as much. Next slide. A lot of us have dumped it on HUD and dumped it on the city of Plano. If you look at some of the numbers at the bottom of the slide, Collin County has 1,500 low rent and Section 8 housing, and that's for the 60,000 residents in poverty. Not nearly enough, and we're expecting them to do our job as a faith-based community. Next slide. Look at all the no's up on this slide. That's embarrassing. No place for children, no coordinated intake, no county hospital, no continuum of care plan. Next slide. One document that you need to read is the consolidated plan. Go backwards. Read the slides at the back. That's where all the information is. The consolidated plan has been in place for a number of years in order for us to receive HUD funding for the city of Plano. It addresses decent housing, suitable living, and expanded economic opportunities. But it addresses people that have houses mostly. Most of the money is spent on rehabilitation of houses that exist and homeowners that that live in those houses. Next slide. The public housing system for Plano consists of 24 houses. That's also embarrassing. So we've got 43 families in public housing waiting list, and we've got 585 on the HCV list. Next slide. Back in 2007, they opened up the request for housing, and 1,200 families signed up. That was back in 2007 when the economy was better. We have not opened that up again because of the burden of fulfilling those needs, and many of those 1,200 have walked away. Next slide. If you look at the demographics and the map on your handout, you see where the sweet spots are. You see where the HUD medium income level falls below the expectations of being able to sustain a house or sustain a household. If you go to the next slide, there's a few more areas that are filled in 2012 as opposed to previous years. So the problem is getting worse. The problem is getting worse in Plano, on the fringes, on the east side and the west side of the city. Next slide. Here's some statistics that'll break your heart. 34% of our population rents. Of those 34%, 38% of those individuals can't afford rent. They're renters, they can't afford to live there. 40% can't afford to live in the rental house that they're in. 20%, 1 out of 5, can't afford the home that they're in. Their economic status does not provide them to live and sustain a household. And 2/3 of the renters have no chance of affording to buy a house here in Plano. Next slide. So what do we do about this? Part of it is coming together as a faith-based community, filling the gaps, filling the need, and supplementing where the government funding steps off, and we start. And if you could look at, I'm in manufacturing, so I have to go back to Dr. Deming. Dr. Deming has a philosophy of plan, do, study, act, and that's what we need to do. We need to plan. We need to do it. We need to figure out what happened when we did it and do it again, and over and over and over again until the problem goes away. And if you don't have your heart broken when you leave today, go down to Sun Suites and just shake a hand. Just welcome them into a conversation, and you'll understand how difficult it is to break out of the situation that Keisha and everyone else is in. And I'll digress a little bit. About 4 months ago, I met a family at Sun Suites. One of my rental houses was open, and I decided to reduce the rate as low as I could make it and still sustain costs. And one of the families had been at Sun Suites for 3 months. They had a voucher for $2,100 to pay for the first month's rent and the deposit that they came from another state. No landlord would accept that $2,100 in their hand to get them started because their income level didn't meet the requirement, because they were out-of-towners, because they were, quite honestly, for some, probably a mixed-race family, and all the prejudices that go along with homelessness. We moved them into the house. They're still having financial difficulties, but we're making it work. And they're making it work because of some of the charities that have supported them, but they're both working minimum wage jobs. So one of the things that we need to do as a faith-based community is lift those people up and give them more command of their destiny and more command of their opportunities within the earning power that they have as a full family, father, mother, 3 kids. Collaborative solutions. Bring people together, both faith-based groups and our City of Plano neighbors, and get our congregations to understand and break their hearts. Break their hearts so that it's filled with the love that we need to show our fellow neighbors. Next slide. I have an issue with volunteer, the word volunteer, and some of my church family understands that. We need to not have volunteers show up. We need to have people that want to serve, put it at the top of their priority, that they will help their neighbors and be called to do what we have been called to do as human beings, as part of humanity, and that is to take action, to execute. Next slide. Again, report on what we see, coach others, develop analysis, and understand what we try to do, each individually and collectively, if it's working and if it's succeeding. Next slide. We wrote down a lot of examples to get started. If you're just a collection point for food, collection point for clothes, collection point for gift cards, there's ways to get started and ways to get your faith-based community together, and that is action through commitment, through sending forth, through raising funds, providing meals, and hosting family awareness and homelessness awareness within your community. If you go back to the raise funds, those action items, next slide, previous slide. If you go back right there, if you go back to raise funds, those 5 topics are what the homeless have asked for. Food, meaning a hot meal. There is no place in town that they can get a hot meal. We give them a box of food and a can opener and send them on their way. Bus passes, transportation. We've got to provide them with the resources they need to succeed. Next slide. Show up. Get your congregation to show up. If it's at the Sun Suite or if it's at Family Promise, we'll talk a little bit about Family Promise. It is so easy to sign up to provide a meal. It doesn't have to be your faith-based building. There are needs that you can just connect and show up. You don't have to fill out forms. You don't have to go through an 8-hour training session just to provide a meal for a family that's in need. And sit with them and understand their situation. Understand that humanity is important to them and it's important to you. Step 3, collaborate. This problem cannot be shifted to somebody else. This problem is so big that not one entity, not one individual, not one group of people can do it. We all collectively must get involved and solve those critical needs. Step 4, communicate. Communicate with your congregation. Make it a topic. At the end of every message after a worship service, ask your senior pastor why they didn't talk about this. Ask your senior pastor why they didn't say something about our problem here, why they blamed the government, why they blamed the way somebody else does the job, or why they talked about football. This is a real problem. Let's solve it. Next slide. It's just a matter of taking the first step, and we provided a few quotations from influential people, something that you can use as either a whisper prayer or just as a soundbite to get people involved. Thank you.
Testing. This is on, isn't it?
Okay. I want to add my greeting to everyone. I'm so glad to see all of you. I will be introducing the panelists and asking them a question to address. We've limited them to just 5 minutes because we know all of you are busy people and need to go on your way. At the end, we will take Q&A, and they will be around if you want to talk to them individually. The first lady on my right, Lynn Sapiora, is the director of the Samaritan Inn in McKinney, as you heard, the only homeless shelter in Collin County. She graduated from Northwestern University and has been serving in not-for-profit management for the entirety of her career. In the past 7 years, she has been director of the Samaritan Inn and feels strongly that her job is to advocate for the marginalized. She is also author of the book In Search of Motherhood and is a frequent contributor to the Dallas Morning News. Lynn lives in McKinney with her husband and 3 children. Then in the middle is Jacqueline Cook, Director of Family Promise of Collin County, a fairly new program in our area. This program facilitates overnight shelter that is provided by local faith communities. Jacqueline is a U.S. Army veteran, a lifelong community volunteer. She holds a BA in human behavior and is working on a master's degree in counseling. In 1995, Jacqueline was a private landlord facing the decision to evict a young widow with 2 children or to forgive the past due rent. The first option created a homeless family. The second created an opportunity for the family. She recognized that either way, she owned part of the outcome. She had social and moral accountability. In subsequent years, awareness and the recognition that she could make a difference inspired her to reach out. Since 1998, Jacqueline has worked in the nonprofit and educational sectors assisting Collin County families. She joined Family Promise in 2012. James Thomas, on my far right, is the product of Plano, Texas, graduating from PISD and received his degree from Howard Payne University. He has worked in Plano as a teacher, a coach, and an administrator for an alternative school. As a student services coordinator for the district, James is responsible for ensuring due process is awarded to individuals involved in major discipline incidents. He works with elementary summer school programs and works with PISD parents and administrators regarding policy issues. He states, after working for over 30 years with the school district, I find myself in a position where I can give back to my community. I have the monumental task of trying to provide resources for the numerous homeless families in our district. We will let Lynn Sapiora go first. This is what we asked her to address. How has the problem of homelessness in Plano impacted the Samaritan Inn? And how is the Samaritan Inn addressing it? And what obstacles have you had to overcome in order to support people in Plano?
5 minutes, huh? I guess the first thing that I want to say is we heard a statistic about 3,500 people being turned away by the Samaritan Inn last year. Not quite true. 3,754 qualified people were turned away. Either way you look at it, it's way too big a number. And as someone who works with the staff and the people directly, you can't imagine what it feels like to see a family come in 103-degree weather, a single mom with 2 kids and a nursing baby, and say sorry, and watch them, if they're one of the lucky ones who have a car, drive across the street and know they're camping out there until we have an opening at the Samaritan Inn. So it is a problem, but it's not a new problem at all. Some of you may know that a couple of years ago, we tried to build a shelter in Plano. HUD had said that Plano desperately had a need, and we know that 20% of the people who live at the Samaritan Inn are typically from Plano. And we were committed to building it and to operating it and staffing it, and it didn't happen. We were really, really disappointed. However, we know we need to grow, and we also know we are serving the entire community. So what is happening now is that just a week and a half ago, the Samaritan Inn Board of Directors voted to buy 15 acres of property about 300 yards south of our current facility. And on that site, we plan to build a state-of-the-art family shelter because in our experience, the fastest growing number in the homeless population is homeless families. We will take everybody. We found that people from Plano don't seem to have a problem finding a way to our door. We serve Collin County residents first, but if there's an open bed, anybody is eligible. Won't go up for a while. Signed the papers, happy to have the land. Now I just need to raise $7 million and then we'll get this all going. Our biggest problem, we think, biggest obstacle, is we need an emergency shelter. We need some place in the county where people can go to get out of the heat, get out of the cold, wait for an opening in one of the programs that you heard about. That is a significant need. And I hope that in the very near future, the faith community and anybody else who's interested can help make that a possibility.
And now for Jacqueline, we ask, what benefits and challenges does Family Promise face with the model of host churches? What kind of program or continuum of care would you like to see implemented in Plano?
I'll reiterate what Lynn said, 5 minutes, really? Okay, first I need to clarify a little bit about the Family Promise model because sometimes it's misunderstood. We do consider ourselves to be a shelter. We're not a static site shelter like Samaritan Inn is, but we do have shelter pieces that we put together. One of the things that we have is what we call our day center. It's a center of operations for our families that's available to them from 7 in the morning until 5 p.m., 7 days a week. We actually have 2 day centers that are now available. In the day centers, families can do laundry, they can work on the computer, they can take showers. So it's a shelter piece that's a day center piece, and that part is static. For the evening hosting, what our model does is we look at existing resources in the community. We don't look to build, we look at existing resources. Who's out there? Who has real estate that's being underutilized, and how can we tap into it? We are with a program that is new to Collin County, but nationally has been around for 25 years. We're one of 183 affiliate networks, and we exist in the community because there's a need. So, benefits of the model. We expand and contract with the need in the community based on what's already there because we're using existing resources. So if the homeless problem is immense, we can hopefully expand our network of hosting churches, which is our evening shelter piece, and that existing real estate is utilized. If there's not a need, it contracts. We don't have empty buildings sitting around. So that's a benefit. Challenges in Plano have been zoning, and we were able to sidestep that. Graciously, the city council worked with us. And our limitation right now is we have a network of churches that our families rotate through. Again, that's their evening shelter piece. The churches in Plano are limited to 30 days of shelter a year. Or the way our rotations are set up, they can host our families 4 times a year for 1 week. We're also limited to, by the City of Plano ordinance, to 20 people that the churches are able to host in that fashion. Our network is actually set up only to do 14 people at a time. That looks like 3 to 5 families. In regard to the piece on continuum of care, I was contemplating that, and the the Moore tornado came to mind. We currently fall under the Dallas area continuum of care, which means that our funding is doled out by Dallas. We are very underrepresented on that continuum of care with the HUD funding. And what needs to happen is that Collin County needs to form their own continuum of care. And that's a process that many organizations are working on, including the Homeless Coalition. But in the meantime, what we need to do, and what Doug and Janet have tried to show you today, is we need to make a human chain, just like they did in Moore. We're there, we're the experts, we know what needs to be done, we see it's before us, we identify the problem, and we make a human chain. We fill in the gaps. In case you didn't see the coverage in Moore, the human chain I'm referring to is the people who went to the school and actually removed rubble and removed bodies and removed live people. And they were the first people on the site, and they were the community members vested there. And that's what we are. And we need to form that human chain. And this is a start to that.
For James, what trends have you seen in the rise of homelessness in Plano? What is the geographic spread of homelessness across Plano? And how is the lack of continuum of care a challenge for families?
Okay, prior to even answering that, first of all, Mom and Dad taught me to say thank you. So first of all, I'd like to applaud you for being here, because ultimately you're helping me and you're helping my kids in my community, so I'd like to say thank you. Secondly, I'd like to say that I am not a depressing person. Not at all, but this really has a propensity to be a depressing topic, okay? So bear with me as I gather myself on this too. I know I started out a whole lot younger. When we worked together, I used to look a lot like Denzel Washington or Brad Pitt, I don't know. And now this has happened to me. But again, I'd like to say thank you for all that you've done and for all that you do for me. And there are so many of you out there who've touched lives of my families who need it. As a PISD individual, and Doug and Janet did a wonderful job in presenting those numbers. But those numbers, and data drives things, but they don't, you really don't get it until you get that phone call or a parent walks over to your building and say, I have nothing. I've been removed from my apartment. My husband took everything. I have nowhere to go. My daughter and I are sleeping out at Walmart on the tollway. We have nowhere to go. Can you help me? Thus I call to you. And there are a plethora of agencies in Dallas and in various other places, and I use those. But my go-to product is my faith-based community, and you're the one that I have to go. In looking at trends, I'll get to the question though, and looking at various trends, I've discovered primarily the vast majority, and I'd say I have 400, the last 2 years approximately, I've identified 400 students who are homeless. But certainly that doesn't even remotely touch the numbers Janet indicated earlier, because there are so many families who will never reveal that they're homeless. They're either doubled up, or you have 2 or 3 families. I have one 3-bedroom home with 23 people in it. That would be doubled up. I have sofa servers. For those of you who do not know, if you have high school kids, as I have, you have a friend to come over, and they forget to go home for a couple of weeks or a month because they're running from mom or dad, or it may have been abuse or something like that. So I never know those folks. Then we have so many families who basically are mom or dad, they don't want you to know that they're homeless because they fear Big Brother or the government coming in, intervening, or CPS coming in, thinking that they've neglected their kids. So they won't identify themselves. So please understand me that my 400 is not even remotely close to the actual numbers because I really don't know. I train my teachers and my staff and my administrators to do certain things, to look for certain things at school to identify these kids, but it doesn't even get close. But we try to supply and try to work with those families and the various agencies. My trends that I've seen quite a few more professional people becoming homeless, families becoming homeless. I have this lady, she has an MBA. As I was telling Jerry earlier, I have one family, mom was a banker, She was an administrative banker. Her dad was an administrative hospital person. They were homeless. They lived in a hotel. They spent all their money basically trying to maintain. They went through their savings, trying to make sure that their son had the same opportunities he's always had, just trying to maintain. No one, not their next door neighbors, no one knew they're homeless. No one had a clue. And they ended up losing their home, like so many of us in Collin County do, without your next door neighbor even having a clue that you're homeless. Collin County homelessness looks like you and me. So I'm finding that more professional folks are losing it. Good note, the kid, their son, graduated from Plano East, full scholarship at Duke University, academic scholarship, national honor kid. So we have some really good stories. But I see a lot of single parents, as you would know, a lot of professional people coming in who are losing, and it's primarily a job scenario when mom or dad has lost a job, a position, and they find themselves in the throes of homelessness too. Other trends, I've seen a lot more sofa surfers. A lot more kids are kind of doing it on their own, like the one you mentioned, Keisha, a 19-year-old taking care of a 17-year-old brother. Be surprised at the number of families I have doing that. I look at tendencies as to where these posts are. Are they on the east side of town or on the west side of town? Well, I've discovered primarily all my numbers indicate that they're on the west side of town for the most part. Most of my homeless are on the west side. But that would be incorrect, because my counts aren't accurate. And I know for a fact that I have a multitude of families doubled up on the east side. But my teachers, my schools aren't catching them. I can't catch them all. And the parents, they won't notify us that they're homeless. So looking at my numbers, looking at the data, it's really inconclusive, so it's kind of tough to do. And I find myself running after my tail, trying to catch up with things and trying to help some of my families and all. Thank you.
And now for your questions and answers, Alexandra will help take those.
Yes, we are videotaping this for those of you who might be interested in sharing this with your congregation, either through video or having us come into your congregation and share this information. And so we want to make sure we get your questions on the microphone, because otherwise we won't be able to hear them on the video. So if you have a question, please raise your hand so that the speakers can address it.
What's the attitude of our Commissioner's Court regarding the homelessness and the health care for the poor?
The Commissioner's Court, was that the question? Kind of good news and bad news, and this is just my opinion. The good news is we recently found out that they have quite a bit of money that they are going to put out for grants for building affordable housing. And certainly the Samaritan Inn will be applying for the new family shelter that we talked about. The bad news is I have repeatedly spoken to the Commissioner's Court and said we need a county hospital. We need a county hospital as Collin County gets closer to 1 million people. And they have told me in one way or another, forget about it. Ain't never gonna happen.
In your homeless population, how many can you truly say are homeless because of mental illness, and how are we addressing that?
Because of mental illness? Well, I'll start and let them answer. Oftentimes it's a component, untreated depression, bipolar, but I would not say that it's the number one reason that they're homeless. At the Samaritan Inn, the number one reason is long-term unemployment.
We do see that piece. Our population group is families with children. We don't do singles, we just do families with children. So we do see that piece. But there's a lot more referrals, again, going towards the Dallas area for people who do have that mental health piece in place than for families with children without that mental health piece. So that piece, I think, while it's not adequately addressed, it's more adequately addressed than the family piece is thus far.
Because I work primarily with the students, I rarely get an opportunity to intervene with some of the parents, but I've seen very few cases of mental illness. I know we have an agency or two here in Plano, actually, who works with that degree, but I don't think it's a major scenario.
One of the things that I hope we don't forget is we talked a lot about families today, but when James and I were doing a count for 2 years in a row, there are people living in the woods. We had, James, if you remember, one gentleman over by the senior center, he out of a foster home, and apparently people out of foster homes are in big trouble. He had no identity whatsoever. He had a toothache. So this is another common problem. So while we're emphasizing families, let's not forget about the very small percentage, but they are out there, who are living in the streets and they have nowhere to go. We gave them a card, I think, James, with a 211 number. He said, well, how do I get there? You know, so the important fact, I know the coalition is looking into that, and is how do we get the resources to the people that need it, and how do we get it efficiently? Because there's so many people here that are doing great work, but how do we get the people that need it to the resource? And of course we have to build resources, but that's another question I hope we don't forget. There are people out there that are hurting, and they're not families, they're individuals.
I might answer a little bit of that, Frank. In our discussions, this preliminary group that was been meeting, that we have discussed that at length, and we would like to have the faith community come together in a group that you can share that information so that we can disseminate the needs and bring the resources together in a more efficient manner. That is one of our goals.
And I know that Christopher Green, Christopher, there you are. For those of you who haven't met him, he plays a major role in getting some of the faith-based organizations together. So thank you, Christopher.
In the Fort Worth area, Catholic Charities is very active with what they call street teams, and that is a component that could definitely come out of the congregational level here. Being aware of the resources that are available to refer these people to is also key, but actually getting to them at the street level often happens from a ministry, and that the natural place for that is from the congregations.
One thing that really, and I apologize, but Frank, as you alluded to that particular scenario, I grew up here in Plano. What you just said was a gentleman came out of the woods in Plano with basically nothing, with no identity, in affluent Plano, Texas. Now, it takes a moment for that to settle, and I'm having issues with that, but that's exactly what transpired, and it really bothers me.
Hi, I'd like you all to address a little bit about how homelessness prevention might impact our homeless population. If we had more resources to actually help people who are in a financial crisis get the help that they need, how would that impact your numbers?
Do you mind if I jump in first? Prevention is crucial, but the problem is until we address the issue of affordable housing, the $10 an hour jobs are not going to cover it. They're always going to be in crisis mode because it's going to take more than 35% of their income to cover their housing. So prevention is key, but it's really not foundational. The foundation is we've got to get that affordable housing in place.
Well, I would add to that, certainly that's true, we need affordable housing, but we also need jobs that pay a living wage. I mean, I can't tell you how many people are working at below poverty level and their employers are keeping them at 38 hours a week so that they don't get any benefits. So along with affordable housing, we have to have jobs that have living wages. Nevertheless, I do think the prevention piece is important. We get money from the city of Plano, the city of Frisco, and the city of McKinney. Of course, it's always limited. But there are certainly times where somebody's having a tough month for whatever reason, and that can get them over the hump. And we know for a fact that people have been able to stay in their homes because of those prevention monies. There's never enough prevention money, but it certainly has helped.
We want to thank you for coming. They will be here, that you can continue to interact with them if you want any more information. Alexandra, Janet, and Doug are here. Doug has his cards on the table, so you can take one if you want to do a follow-up call or need follow-up information.
And I just wanted to add a couple more things. We have in your red notebook, there is a blue page. I think it's the last page, and it's if you don't mind filling that out before you leave it at the end of the table. Very, very important for us to have your input in it because we want to do something now. We've heard all this great information, and my parents taught me well too, so thank you, and thank you for all your hard work. You're doing the work. The other thing I wanted to say is now that you've heard this information, if you want anyone to come speak to your group, Doug has agreed to, he has his card on the table, as he said, and his contact information is also in the red notebook, and we can bring that information to you. Also, we're going to be forwarding the video link for today's presentation, so you can also refer to that as well. We also invite you to take this information and bring up these discussions with your small groups in your community, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your congregations, and see where it will take you, because I love the analogy that you had with the human chain. That's remarkable. So I think that's something that we all can take away from today. Also, if you will mark your calendar, August 29th, we'll be joining together again. So I'm sure we'll do it about lunchtime. And you'll be getting information that as well.